Hello and welcome to the GreaterStl Sports Podcast on the all-new SG4L Media Network. Robert Bolsby here with you. You can tweet the podcast at GSTLSP. You can tweet the network at SG4LMN1. You can find us on Instagram at GreaterSTLSP. And you can find us anywhere else. iHeart, YouTube, Facebook, Google Podcasts, Apple, anywhere you can find podcasts. Videos going up on YouTube and Spotify and Facebook every time we do a podcast. Find out at GreaterStl Sports Podcast. Now it's a fun time in sports, definitely with the baseball coming back, and if you're in St. Louis, you know, the hockey team going into the playoffs, you ain't got much else to root for. I mean, you can root for the lost 2 team, whenever they play. And, you know, I'm not the biggest spring training guy. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing if you watch it and do all that. And, you know, whatever you do. If you enjoy it, you enjoy it. I'm watching the games. There's no doubt about it. When it's on, I'm seeing what's on. I'm paying attention. But it's crazy how some people like take spring training games and like take a 3-0 record in spring training and say, look at the Cardinals already. Look how great Newbar's doing. Look at the stats that Kistner's putting up. It's spring training. I mean, this has happened before. We've had people with that batted 100 in spring training that have gone and hit 30 home run seasons. I'm pretty sure Matt Carpenter was in one of those spring training slumps one year. Maybe it was Holiday. Who cares? And I would like, I just get mad that I see every day like someone doing something, someone trying to help their team better. I mean, and seeing the money we got, I just don't understand how it doesn't happen. I know there's not much left out there, but this is a team that is in need of a starter and isn't probably in need of another productive outfielder because you have essentially 4 question marks out there. 5 now that you've had the great Corey Dickerson. And Tommy Pham, you know, a guy that's played here, you know what he does. Maybe he didn't have the best way of going out. And yeah, let's just let him sign with the Reds. Who had to play better stats than Corey Dickerson? And I'm not trying to, you know, it's hard to compare the two. I understand what you need in the Cardinals lineup. And Corey Patterson, former Cardinal Corey Patterson, Corey Dickerson provides you with that, a left-handed bat that used to have pop. That hasn't had pop in a good 3-4 years. And you have a guy that's been a proven 20 home run hitter no matter where he goes. They, for some reason, just love the guy in Tampa Bay. He loves Tampa Bay, even weirder. But we don't need that. Like, my whole thing is the Harrison Bader thing. Why we think that Harrison Bader is like the second coming. And I understand the defense. Yeah, but I see it out there that Bader's the number 2 center fielder in the league because of his defense. And the second half of the year last season. And maybe it was the National League. I mean, the number 2 maybe on paper, if you just say he's going to do what he did last season in the second half. But I don't see Harrison Bader being like this star player. Yeah, he's got the swag. He's the guy you're going to put out there in your commercials and out there for the schools. You know, good looking kid. Has, you know, a little bit of swagger to him. Knows how to talk. But they're like he's some kind of second coming. And it was nice seeing him go out there and do what he did in the second half, and go out there and get, you know, a guy that could show that he might have a little pop that he's shown before. But it's not like he's like this almighty guy that's been doing it for 3, 4, 5 years. He's played good defense in center field. But he's essentially been a starter for the last 4 years and hasn't batted higher than 260. Supposed to be the fastest guy in the game, hasn't stolen more than 15 bases. Not saying that he's been in productive spots in the lineup, but his best season was this year with 50 RBIs. And I think the problem with him is you want that speed and that little pop up and the higher up in the lineup, and he's just not getting that position. Because he's not the batted average, get on base type of guy. And I understand you can put Tommy in that spot. But what's Tommy in a year from now, 2 years from now? Other than he could be a super utility guy. Is he the starting shortstop? Do they finally give up on DeYoung and just ride with Gorman and Edman? Or do they ride with Sosa and let Edman be that super utility guy? I mean, you're backing yourself a corner in certain situations because when Tommy becomes something else, if you don't have him starting or whatever, what they plan on doing, let's just say they don't have him starting, well, who's the guy that takes over that leadoff spot? I mean, do you want a guy that's at second base with some pop? Do you want him batting first in the lineup? Do you want a 20, maybe a 30 home run guy batting first in your lineup? Sounds nice. But I would think you would want that guy in a more productive spot in your lineup. Your 2 through 6 hitters. Essentially what Harrison Bader's become is your 7th, 8th hitter. I mean, you're going to have a lineup that there's going to have their DH probably batting ninth. I can't think of how you would make a lineup without the DH batting ninth. Unless you have Sosa in that lineup. Maybe a DeYoung batting ninth, playing short. Maybe you put the shortstop down there. If Corey Dick, but do I trust Corey Dickerson or Anthony Barber? What I've seen out of a couple seasons of Paul DeYoung, I don't. I expect about the same thing from all three of them, and that's a little bit hate on Lance Newbar. Lars, I keep calling him Lance for some reason. I know that's not his name. I'm not trying to hate, and I'm not. I should probably say his name right. I'm not trying to hate on him at all. I'm just saying that you're putting this guy in a position to say, hey, this is you. Young kid, essentially only got a cup of coffee in the majors last year. Did play a little longer than, what a typical cup of coffee is. Showed good defense. Showed a little bit of pop. Showed, but wasn't consistent about it. And his defense has been a lot more better than I thought. I think maybe he was uncomfortable at first being up on the major league roster, but he's starting to show some speed and starting to show that he can go out there and get the ball. But defense wasn't that thing I was worried about. I mean, there's only 8 position players, and you had 5 gold gloves, with another one almost able to get 6, and Yadier Molina. So I just think the Cardinals have backed themselves in a spot, in which I complained about in the last podcast, is in a very easy, on paper, a very easy and winnable division. I mean, the Reds just gave up on everybody. Sonny Gray, Suarez, Winkler, Castellanos, Garrett. Even though they did get a starting pitcher out of Garrett and Mike Minor, who's a pretty good starting pitcher. But if you got some good starting pitching, after you get past Yachty in this lineup, I mean, what do you really expect? You're going to have Bader, DeYoung, and a DH. Or Bader, Sosa, and a DH. Are you really expecting that to be productive? And I'm not saying that it can't be. I'm more or less saying, why put yourself in this position where it has to be when you have the money to spend? It's just not a gettable thought in my mind. It's not the way I would think. And I'm not saying go out here and get a $300 million player. And I'll keep harping that I'm not saying that. But a 15 to 25 guy? Did pitch your payroll about 170? So still be 60 million away from even being close to the luxury tax. You're still 60 million away from it. And you don't have to put yourself in a position to where you can't bring up the young guys in a couple years. Most of these guys are taking 6-year contracts with the opt-outs after, every couple years. I'm sure the teams are throwing buyouts in there somewhere, you got 100, after 4 years we can buy out this contract for $5 million and you do what you do. No matter what you did. Plus with a team that's getting older at certain positions, first base, catcher, third base, starting pitching is starting to creep up on you. That you're going to have people interchanging in a few years in the first place. And I just don't understand how some teams can go and you can just see that the teams go for it and you just sit back and say, well, if we make it to the playoffs, it's a crapshoot when we get to the, and that's what they always, when we make it to the playoffs, it's anybody's game. Blah, 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 blah. I mean, you got 3 teams in the NL East just going for it. I mean, the Rockies are even making moves. And I understand that you've got the contract of Arenado that you get paid for, by the way, for a lot of it. And you got the big contract of Goldschmidt. But that's about it. I mean, your main names are on 1-year deals, Yachty and Adam Wainwright, and then the rest of the players are fighting arbitration right now. And I actually didn't, out of the players that signed on that arbitration thing, I actually didn't think John Flaherty was going to be that guy that was going to sign his contract. That was signed. I thought he would at least fight. And Tyler and Bader fight over $700,000 from the team about, and I'm sure that somewhere in there, that the arbitrators are probably either split it up or side with one side. Is what they usually do. Which I'm sure it's not a number the Cardinals are worried about, but people are getting mad about that. Why not get what you can for cheap? This is the process. You're not going to fragile play. I mean, the players go through this all the time. Players understand that the teams are going to try to get the value that they think is worth it. So I don't think this actually, makes the relationship with Tyler O'Neill fragile. And maybe you shouldn't have even thought about trying to put any scorn on the relationship after what you've done to Jack Flaherty over the last few years. And maybe he signed because he's injured. And maybe that's a smart way to go. And he was injured last year, so why not just take this cool $5 million and, pitch when I can? Understandable. But I think that they done fractured the relationship with him where he's just going to, until he doesn't have to take their little offer anymore, then after that, he's not going to be a Cardinal anyway. And that sucks to say. I mean, it's not like this is the first time this has ever happened. Tommy Pham, speaking of. So it's just real, mind-blowing. Well, really mind-numbing, not even mind-blowing. It almost hurts my brain so much to even think about this. It's hard to even think of if you have the money there. And I guess I don't know the exact Cardinal numbers or what they claim the numbers are. But if I'm pretty sure that if teams are out here covering $280 million a year, and you just signed this $1 billion contract with, or whatever it was with Fox Sports at the time and now Bally Sports, I'm sure you got a little money to spend. And I can understand some teams wanting to show off what they've drafted and what kind of young players they picked up in the international draft and all that, what they've spent the money the right way and blah, blah, blah. But you know that you're a couple years from them. You know at this point right now that you're probably not going to have a Gorman up this season, at least till rosters expand. Well, rosters are going to expand twice now, but we'll talk about that in a second. But until September. A Yepis is about your only shot. Now, Donovan has made a case for it because he's shown a little versatility playing third in the outfield and also being a left-hander. But I think they think he's a couple years away. So your best shot's going with an unproven guy at DH than what you have on the roster, which doesn't make any sense to me. Definitely when the league itself puts you in a position to add an extra bat to the lineup that needs it. You might as well throw Wainwright out there on his day. I think Miles hit a couple home runs, or at least one home run a year or two ago. You might as well throw him out there. See what he's got. That's how I feel at this point. And maybe you don't throw Miles out there. Maybe you don't throw a Dakota out there. Anybody that's been injured. My whole beef is that you got two guys fighting for the same spot that do the same thing. And maybe Corey Dickerson does have a little bit of a track record. But it was years ago. Multiple years ago. 3 to 4 years ago. The last good season I've seen was 2007. That I'll count as a good season. And I know the rules are all different now. The way that people, I don't talk much of the sabermetrics on this show. I hate it. I think it's one of the stupidest things that ever happened in baseball. A lot of it doesn't make any sense to me. WAR and all that. You know what? You can make any number look good. Harrison Bader was a 4 of WAR, basically 3.9. Tommy Pham was a 1.4. And essentially, and I'm sure because he plays center field, the defensive metrics help Bader there. But essentially, Bader just had a better batting average. That's about it. So here's a guy that you could switch out when you need to if somebody's struggling, that has a little bit of pop, that's been here before, that has been in multiple positions in the lineup, that you can move around a little bit, that's been open, wanted to go back to Tampa Bay, said he'd go back to Tampa Bay and play first and learn first base. And, I was almost, for sure they were getting Pujols at one point. Wasn't even a thought in my mind that they weren't going to get Pujols. And now I don't think they are. I don't think if Pujols went on social media right now and begged to come here, that the Cardinals would even think about it. I think if Pujols begged here right now to come on $1 million salary, I think that the Cardinals you would read that the Cardinals were involved, but I don't think that he would be here. And that's disappointing in the sense that not just in the Pujols, but that's anybody that's out there now. And some of these guys that that have a good report, and you see Zach Thompson going out there and having a horrible evening the other night. Like some of these guys that have a little bit of trade value now, maybe need to go. Maybe a Zach Thompson needs to be traded for an upgrade for a starting pitcher or maybe a bat. I'm not going to go as far as Libator, but you got some other guys down the pike. A Jordan Walker, who I understand is a young age and probably don't want to give up on that yet. But you pretty much got his position filled all around with Gorman and Tommy Edman and DeYoung and Sosa and for now Nolan Arenado. Brendan Donovan's another one. A young guy that you could probably trade off to a Miami or a Tampa or Oakland for some kind of starting pitching. I mean, you see some of these trades that some of these teams make, and it's just like, a couple prospects for Oakland's best pitcher. And I understand that Oakland's just trying to get rid of money right now. But why are the Cardinals not involved in that? Why do the Cardinals not have a Chris Bassett? Why do you not hear them in a Frankie Montez or a Sean Mazza trade? And it's always funny how the Cardinals always tweak off on these stories. Like, at first, the Cardinals are in it with Trevor Story. The Cardinals are in it with this guy, with a Joe Kelly. And then the last stories you read, well, the Cardinals never made an offer. His 4 offers were from, Houston, LA, Chicago, and whoever he signed with. And I believe that the Cardinals were in on Corey Dickerson. And that's all. Honestly, at that point, that's all I believe that they were on free agents. I don't think they were in any sort of free agent thing with any other major free agent. Should have been with starting pitching. And knowing that you needed, and you could say Yepes and you could say all that, but are you going to trust Yepes in the field? What happens when Bader starts off like he did last year? What if Tyler O'Neill doesn't have the success he had last year? What if Dylan Carlson, maybe because of 2020 being a short season, and 2021 being a little different because of COVID, and now COVID being a little less, and then MLB's not going to test for much COVID anymore. Then he might have finally hit his slump. And then all you got now is to throw a young kid like Newbar out there, and then hope he doesn't slump. Or you throw Corey Dickerson out there, who you hope gains his pop back. And I don't want to hate on Corey Dickerson. He was a 270 batter last year. That's not bad. And 300 something at bats. So he can get on base still. The problem is what you talked about and what he talked about was hitting for power. And essentially you got him for a DH spot where you're going to need some production out of. I mean, I would rather have Brad Miller. You essentially gave the same contract to Corey Dickerson that Brad Miller had. And Brad Miller could be that super utility guy. The Tommy's probably going to end up being when Gorman's here next year. That's what Brad Miller could have been this year. And when anybody struggled, he might not be the greatest shortstop in the world, but he can plug, and Tommy can move right to shortstop. See, I just don't get it. There's proven commodities. There's a commodity you had in Brad Miller that you know what he can do. And then there's Corey Dickerson. And now with the MLB expanding to 28, now a lot of this is going to be pitching. And I wonder who and you'll probably see a Helsley up here or somebody like that. And I don't know who else you bring up because, that's basically your bullpen. You didn't put much into the bullpen. I'm sure a Van Heeren or somebody like that will be on the roster. Somebody that you didn't think would be on the 25 after spring training that's going to be on, or 26 after spring training. It's going to be on that 28 until it resets. And that's essentially so if your starting pitcher fails, you're gonna have to have somebody to back him up. And if the Cardinals are at that point, I go back to Jake Wolford. I don't even try these KBO guys again. I go, hey, if you want to play this, this game that you're playing, you might as well, and you've had Jake Woodford up here for the last 2 years, give him a shot. You already ruined one guy in Acevedo, whatever his name is, that you keep bringing up and just let him lose every game, knowing that he wasn't Major League ready. If you're going to throw like that, a guy like that in the 4 or 5 stars, why not just let Jake Woodford go until he's not good anymore? Until he can't do it anymore. Because that's the position you put yourself in. So give me all this nonsense about young talent that you've already given me, but prove it to me. I don't want to see these KBO guys in there. I want to see the young guys that you got bringing up. And I'll stop complaining about the Cardinals. And it's funny how this MLB thing worked out. I just said the 28 thing. But now all of a sudden, they're best friends. Every rule is a yes. The Ghost Runner rule, which is having a runner at second base and extra innings. Yeah, sure. The Ohtani rule, which that whole rule never made sense to me in the first place. If Ohtani comes out of the game as a pitcher, he still can. He should still be up at the bat. He's still a batter in that game. I mean, there's no rule. I mean, I guess the rule was if your pitcher hits, I guess your pitcher always hits. I guess that's how the rule works. But yeah, let's disagree with that rule. Up in the lineup, or up in the rosters, because we needed a full month and we're only getting 3.5 weeks, and blah, blah, blah. Of spring training. And this happy, everything's fine, let's agree on these rules. This shows you how much of a sham that whole thing was. They're getting something out of this that we're not knowing. We're going to see a revenue thing from these doubleheaders or something like that. And I'm sure that they were. I'm sure that it is. I'm sure that ESPN, when you got them doubleheaders going, ESPN can buy a Boston New York game during the day for a doubleheader, and they buy a Cubs Cardinals game at night, or the other way around. And I'm sure when they're buying, then you see Fox Sports making money because ESPN takes away, or they might get a pick out of that. But that's going to definitely up the viewership because of ESPN, which is going to help revenue. So somewhere in here, this is about money. And I'm sure at the end of the season, they'll say, oh, we lost money here. We might have gained it here, but because of that, we lost money here. That's all you're going to hear about is what they lost. Just funny that they all agree now, and it took them so long to agree on this CBA, and they were, at this point, they were so close, and the next day they were so far apart. It just proves that it was all a sham. Now, something that I kept saying wasn't going to happen did happen. As the St. Louis Blues made a trade for 2 defensemen. One that goes to the American Hockey League, and the main one is Nick Leddy, and then he got traded for Oscar Sundqvist and Jake Wallman. Which is essentially just a fill-in-the-gap trade. Let's try to shake something up on the defense. Which I'm glad that they try to do that. They did it with a guy that's got a minus 33 plus minus. Now, they put a bunch of stats on Twitter. I went to go look for them, and I can't find them. But it's hard for me to like a guy that has a minus 33 plus minus on the ice. That means that when he's on the ice, that the team, he's on the ice, the opposing team scores 33 times more than his team did. And now he was playing on a bad team in Detroit. So probably playing minutes. And before that, he's playing on a bad team in the Islanders. So probably playing a lot more minutes than he was probably used to. Probably not his thing. Probably not the number, the top 6, the top 2 to top 4 defensemen. Excuse me. A top 4 defenseman like he probably was in Chicago or anything like that. But it's just a fill-in-the-gap trade. And if you're a guy like Michaela, I mean, and this is what I said, that they had to put fearing somebody. Now Michael knows he's probably that 7th guy. So now he's going to step it up. Definitely being the 7th guy, what I said they were going to do with Tarasenko out, and a little worried about Thomas with the concussion. And then, Bozak and Troy Krug. And it happens with every team. We played a beat-up Capitals team and beat them 5-2. And they were just as beat us up as us. They were playing 7 defensemen. Like I said, this was going to happen. This is bound to happen when you're getting in a stretch where teams are tired. Teams are injured. Teams are going to find ways when they're coming to the stretch of the player point to rest their top players. Like you didn't see TJ Oshie in that game. Find clever ways to do it. So basically, it's still in the playing time when it gets to the stretch when you need them. And I'm happy in the trade in the sense that you're probably going to get to see a little more Mackenzie McCarron. You're going to get to see a little more out of Nathan Walker, who actually scored a goal against Washington. Crazy that every time he plays, it seems like he's out there scoring. Even though he's got 5 goals, and one of them was a hat trick. So it's a little easier to look like you're scoring every game when you get a hat trick in a game. But some of these guys that produce in the middle of the season, and it looks like a guy like Torpetenko might be that guy that can take up some ice, a big body guy that can take up some ice like a Sundqvist did. Got his goal out in front of the net, the other night. So maybe a guy that can go down there in the trenches. And the Blues, it seemed like when they the other night after the trade, that's what they were about. They're going down and trying to get the dirty goals. And they just seemed like a whole lot hungrier team. I mean, the way Brendan Shannon is playing is crazy, and I couldn't believe that people wanted to trade this guy. I mean, it looks like a whole new player since he came back from injury. The way Perron's playing. Before this. And I'll say one thing about Leddy, the minus 33 and all that, the game before that in Detroit, he played 25 minutes. He only played 20 for the Blues. So he played, a period in the game, basically. But cut down his minute times. He gets the puck out of the zone. He starts offensive drives. He gets the puck across the deep blue line. And that's what you need. You needed somebody that's going to get the puck out of the zone and protect the goalie. And if he can just fill in a blank guy and play with Bertuzzo and play 20 minutes a game and just be out there to eat up ice time and eat up space. I mean, that's kind of what you needed. And if you got a guy like that that's going to go do that on the power play, you can get the offensive guys like Falk and Parenko in there, offensive defensemen. They do a little extra. So I'm not gonna sit here and say it's the greatest trade in the world. I'm actually disappointed in the trade. I actually think if you were gonna put something on the defense, you should have did it with Waltman. And I guess you could say a trade makes it a shakeup. I mean, makes more of a shakeup than saying, "Hey, we're gonna healthy scratch somebody." But healthy scratches have always worked too. And it's not like it's costing the Blues a bunch of money, which doesn't really bother me. He's not $5.5 million guy, so he's gonna get about, a little over $250 to finish out the rest of the season, or $2.5 million to finish out the rest of the season. And I think the Blues are getting paid for that, or trading Sundqvist got him around, however that worked. I just really like Oscar Sundqvist. I just thought he was that guy that, and he's shown it. I mean, you've seen that guy coming off the ice limping almost every time he comes off the ice. He's getting in the way of pucks. He's going in for the hits in the corners, doing a lot of forechecking. I mean, he was he's the guy in front of the net on offense. And I guess if you can feel a little more comfortable with your defenseman, if you feel a little more, I would automatically already feel more comfortable with Letty than I do Mikkola. That hey, we can actually start someone where we can dig deep down into and find our spot in front of the goalie and make these plays, get the dirty goals, put screens on plays, make a crazy pass that like Saad made the other night when he was down there trying to get a goal of the net and basically just flip it around and pass it to O'Reilly. He was right on the other side. Something you haven't really seen a lot from the Blues, which I might not have complained on this podcast, but yelling at games, it always seems like when the Blues pass it to a certain side, nobody's ever there. I mean, I'm serious. And the Blues are just pass happy in the first place. But it's different you're going to have some passes that go in the net if you got some guys down there blocking the goalie's vision and playing in the dirty areas. You're going to have some easier goals. And if the defensive are more focused in on there, you're going to have some open space in the middle of the ice that gives a guy like a Kyrou or a Tarasenko quality shots at the net. And Kyrou just needs to shoot more. I kind of feel like he's falling into the Robert Thomas thing, where he's just all of a sudden getting pass happy and trying to make the play. And I just think with his skill and how fast he is, that passing the puck is probably not the best thing for him. Because he can make the play to get past guys. And I think he just should use that more to his effectiveness. Which he does, but it just seems like he's passing off the puck. Which is okay in the right situations. I just think as a young guy, of course, like Thomas, that you don't want to be like, oh, I shouldn't have took that shot. Or, man, if you look up after a shot and you see that somebody might have been wide open, and you don't want to be that young guy to be like, oh, man, I messed up there. And I think that's going to be in your back of your mind sometimes, definitely when you're in your 20s and these guys are in their early to mid-30s and have established themselves in the NHL. So I kind of feel for Kyrou and Thomas in them situations. Like I said, this was already a team built to win. And so this Nick Leddy trade isn't like the end-all be-all. Maybe we've got a Lip Balm or a Gargano. Maybe something like that. Maybe a Giugiano, whatever his name is. Maybe then I would say it would make a difference. But this was just a plug-in guy. This is the guy that's to put everybody on their toes on the defense. And if he played like he did the other night and get passes that exit the zone like he did, just think when you get a guy running around the ice with Tarasenko and Thomas out there. Just extra guys for a Kyrou to have open ice. And it's just, and when they all get healthy and you go back to 6 defensemen and 12, and that's going to create more opportunities in it. When you're running 11 guys, I mean, automatically is going to be less opportunities because you're going to have defensemen at times who are going to think like defensive players and not want to shoot the puck. So like when you're on that fourth line, like Logan Brown and Nathan Walker, where the other, they had to fight for the chances, and like I said, they both looked good. Nathan Walker gets a goal, but Logan Brown looked exceptional, and I just don't. And like I said, I think he's falling in the Robert Dutuzo thing, where like, we know what we got, but let's see if this guy can be better. And I think in the long run, you're just going to find out that he's not, or maybe they just think he has the mental stability to be like, hey, when we need you, we're going to need you. And this might be that time. Because you never know what a Tarasenko's really going to show up to be. You don't know what a Mackenzie McCarron is going to be. Nathan Walker might have been great in these first 9-10 games he's played, but you don't know exactly what he's going to be. So if you know what Logan Brown could do, you can just throw him right back in the lineup. Maybe I'm harping on something that I didn't even think. I just think he should be in them. I just like the way he plays. And I think we need a couple more of those on the Blues. But then we're sacrificing scoring, and I get it. But there's guys that can do that. I mean, look at Tom Wilson, even though he's not like the greatest example, but he's a skilled player that will go out there and protect his guys. And I think Logan Brown could be that guy. And I think that's why we miss Zach Stanford. I mean, how much would you love to have Ryan Reeves on this team? Because you see in the last game with the Blues getting the penalties, and a lot of these penalties were ticky-tacky penalties, but both teams were getting them. I mean, teams just go out there and just pick on the Blues. And you really can't have that with young guys. Like, you can't, that can break the psyche of a young guy getting picked on like a Thomas or a Kyrie all the time. So I don't think that's something you could have. And maybe a guy like Letty, he's a veteran in the league, is a good guy that can go and be, and help out in those situations. Like, it wasn't a big deal that Bertuzzo was trying to do it the other night, even though most of his were just cross-checking, getting pissy about things and cross-checking people. But when you're going 11-7 and we got an extra guy, like, I'm going to go out here and, I'm going to take the risk, but I'm going to protect my players. And that's why I like him on this team. I mean, Michael is about the only guy that I think on the Blues that I actually don't like. And that just might be a homer thing. But I think you've had a pretty good season, and this team's been pretty much structured together to where, I mean, it's hard not to like. It was hard not to. It's really, I mean, I'm still hurt over Sutcliffe not being here. I was starting to like Jake Wallman a little bit. Now after one game, I can praise all these things that Letty did and say I liked him, but it's one game. As we found out earlier of the Cardinals, not everything impresses me. And I mean, that's hard to say when you're not the guy doing the sport. But I'm just saying, as a fan, in my eyes, you're going to have to see it a little more. But, like I said, the Blues just did a smart thing. They weren't giving up quality players or draft picks for Reynolds. Or for guys that have high pay contracts, you still have to pay half the contract, and you don't know what you're going to get out of them. I mean, I pretty much think that if you went around and saw and heard everything, would you think that people would think like that somehow this guy's a genius? I mean, there's some of the trades he pulled off. I mean, you hear a little bit about Tage Thompson a little bit, but not. I mean, being in Buffalo and them being a bad team probably doesn't help. I can't remember the last time I heard about a Robbie Fabry. I mean, Lori Laterra. I mean, there's a lot of guys that were shed off this team that, from decent years, that we had decent years, they got us to this point. So, I mean, I just think it was smart that the way they go about their business. And I give them the Cardinals for going about it that way. But they picked and plugged players in positions when they knew they kind of knew what they were getting. And you still had guys to back it up. You still had the James Neals, the Troy Browers of the world. You still had the guys around. But once you knew what you were going to get out of somebody, hey, Troy, go have fun in the press box. Hey, James, if you want to play, we can send you down to Springfield. James like, okay. You know what I'm saying? But we had him around. We had a veteran guy around just in case we didn't get the production we thought we were going to get out of some of the young players. And we got it. And of course, salary cap's not helping with that too much. But we put ourselves in that position where we're pushing the salary cap to win. To keep a guy like an O'Reilly. Falk, Krug, Shin, Tarasenko. 89. I don't want to say his name anymore. Bushnative? Whatever. Pavel, to keep him. To sign him to a big deal when he got it, when we traded for him. Because as these guys get older, they're going to move around. You're going to see a guy like a Bushnevich go to the second line. And probably Kyrie go to a first line. And at times, and you see it with Shannon and Bolzak also, have they moved down to the second, third, and fourth lines. And a guy like Thomas has moved up. I mean, it's the evolution of hockey. But if you still have them guys, even though it's going to be in their later years, and they're still good hockey players, and you get to develop some of your other guys, get to develop a Jake Neighbors, get to develop a Klim Kostin a little more, hopefully. The Mackenzie Karens, Dakota Joshua's, Nathan Walkers of the world. Now you don't have to spend all that crazy money on free agents. Now you don't have to go out there and make crazy trades to put yourself in winning position because you've been doing it by this little pick and piece here until them guys came up and made you an established hockey team. So I'm just glad that the Blues didn't handcuff themselves. You say you might have took on a little bit of money here, but you didn't break the bank. You didn't risk any salary cap casualties. And you still got all your young talent and all your draft picks. I mean, I think that's just an instant win-win in any situation. Whether it's any sport. So I just think it's just the Blues are just a better version of what the Cardinals are doing. And a bit of a better version of it for a while. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say every free agent works out. But somehow we get rid of them when we need to. But, I mean, just the little ones. The Pat Maroons. The Troy Brouwer I mentioned earlier. It's just the little guys like that to where now you're getting to see what a Kyrie can do because he got to develop a little bit. You're getting to see more of a Robert Thomas because now some of them older pieces have gone or moved down the roster a little bit, and now you're getting to see him shine. And then you're also able to go and trade for a guy like Bush Nation and sign him to a contract because you signed a guy like a Pat Maroon, but now you had to let him go, and now you got some open contract space. Now you traded a Sammy Blaze and open up a position for another guy that you think is a better scorer. So it just makes it seem like that I'm just hating on the Cardinals right there. But when there's a proven track record, you should probably go with that. And the Cardinals will have one, and the Blues do. All right, we're going to take a break. This is the GreaterStl Sports Podcast on the SG4L Media Network. Hello and welcome back to the GreaterStl Sports Podcast on the SG4L Media Network. Ryan Bullsby here with you. You can tweet the podcast at GSTLSP. You can tweet the network at SG4LMN1. You can find us on Instagram at GreaterStLSP. You can find us on iHeart, Google Play, Apple, anywhere you can find podcasts at GreaterStl Sports Network. You can find the videos also on Spotify, Facebook, and YouTube at the same spot, GreaterStl Sports Podcast. I said network again. We can. What's kind of cool about Spotify with the videos, and I never paid enough attention to see if I could do it with the audio podcast, but I can put polls or questions up. I guess one of the new questions should be, how many times am I going to say network on this show when it's the GreaterStl Sports Podcast? Number 2, am I going to get Bunashev's name right? Or did I get it right? Did I finally get it right? I don't know. I will get it right. I will get it right before the 1st of next year. I don't even know what the date is. I'll get it right before April 1st. That's my new promise. Now, there was a little controversy at the NHL trade deadline. And Vegas made a trade for a winger, traded away winger Evgeny Davnov. Probably didn't say that one right either. That could be another poll question we can put up. Did I say his name right? To the Anaheim Ducks. Now they got Evgeny or Danov. I'm not going to say either one right. From the Ottawa Senators. And what's being reported is that the Senators never told them. The Golden Knights is that in his contract, he had a 10-team no trade, and one of the teams on there was the Ducks. Now, the whole crazy thing about this is it kind of feels like there's somewhere here from what you're reading. Think the people from Las Vegas haven't said that yet. But that they were never informed that this was in his contract. Now, the deal is that the agent is actually supposed to report the list to the NHL by a certain date, which is sometime in June, which is crazy because I guess it's supposed to be reported before the beginning of the new year. Now, it says that it's basically from the Golden Knights statements where they said they became aware of an issue with respect to the trade. We have been consulting with the league office. That they knew nothing about this. Now, if they traded to get this guy from Ottawa, and they were doing it to clear out cap space, trade him to the Ducks, wouldn't you have read his whole contract? Like, even if Ottawa traded to him and said, here's his contract, wouldn't you get a copy of his contract now that he's your player? What, is Ottawa just got that stashed away somewhere? Like, if I'm a business guy, and I hate reading stuff, the South Park episode of the Human Centipede kind of scares you. Almost makes you always want to read something. But I'm really bad at reading the fine print and everything. Except when it involves money. Or a binding contract. Definitely one that's costing you $5 million. And you could tell it was a salary, and the salary dump that Vegas needs because they're about to get Mark Stone back and another player. Because they took on the contract of a guy that hasn't played in 2-3 years, in Ryan Kessler, who was a good player in his day. The problem is you would think that they would be aware of this because this isn't like the first time this has ever happened. And how, I don't know if it's the agent's job to tell the team that he submitted. You figure that the agent would be like, all right, just let you guys know, submitted that 10 team no trade clause thing, just so you guys know. But I guess his only obligations to the player. So why would he even say anything to the team? I mean, it's just crazy to think about it. You wouldn't have read that contract. And the funny thing is, the last thing this time is that, but it actually happened with the Blues and the O'Reilly trade with Tage Thompson and Patrick Berglund. Is his agent never submitted the 10-team no trade clause. And he got traded to a team he didn't want to play for and ended up getting healthy scratch and just quitting NHL hockey and now is playing over in Sweden or whatever. Who was a guy that I hated. And I think he wore number 19. And I guess he didn't because, well, he used to wear 19. So he had to wear a different number. But I hated Patrick Berglund. I hated him with a passion. I just felt like there was so much there. And he didn't care. He wasn't the guy that cared. And some people that make that money, they don't. Understandable. They're just there to make the money. A Scott Rowland type guy. Really doesn't like playing baseball. Really doesn't like dealing with all of it. But hey, it's easy money. But it wasn't like that was 27 years ago. That was 3 years ago. And I don't know if you're the Ottawa Senators, if you should have to disclose that. Like, wouldn't you think that they'd be kind of hip to the game in the first place? I mean, isn't that your job? Isn't that what you have lawyers for? To investigate these type of things? I mean, before a contract's signed, wouldn't you think you'd have to read it? So before he comes to your team, he'd have to sign a new contract to your team for no matter what it is. Wouldn't you think that somewhere that would have got read, like someone would have read over that? I mean, it kind of blows my mind to think that it was an afterthought. Like, oh, we traded him. Oh, we're going to get all this and this and this. And then like, oh no, the NHL's coming after us. What did we do wrong? It's crazy that it even happened. I don't even remember hearing about it that much with the Patrick Berglund thing. And I guess because this one got caught. But I don't even remember hearing it. And it's funny because Vegas tweeted out right after all this happened, and they tweeted that, the NHL, public relations tweeted out that trade got canceled or whatever. They're like, oh, welcome them back to the team, go Vegas go, or whatever their little hashtag is, or, which another thing I don't understand is some of the hashtags. I guess the STL Blue one is just too easy. STL Blues, I mean, that's just easy. I mean, I guess it would be hard for like CHI Hawks. And I guess it would be, same thing with Nashville. I guess easier just to say go Hawks go or go Preds go. But you're just trying to run a guy off for money, and I can't believe that the guy didn't go because I mean, Anaheim still has a shot at making the playoffs. So I'm surprised he didn't go to them on a team and he's going back to a team that didn't even want him. I mean, do you healthy scratch a $5 million guy? I mean, is that possible? I mean, I guess Buffalo did it with Patrick Berglund. I mean, that's a situation that they put themselves in. You're almost forced to play the guy. And you're already disappointed in what he's done for you. That's why you're getting rid of him in the first place, and because you're getting better players back off the injured reserve. But now do you think it's going to get any better? I mean, it just it's the Cardinals blow my mind, and this whole situation blows my mind. And now you gotta wonder if the Blues, like, number one, was Iowa playing the game, and like, well, like, it's gonna be hard to trade him off. I wonder if they know that. And when the Blues did with Berkman, did they know? Was Doug Armstrong a genius again? And did he know that it wasn't submitted? I mean, I don't see how a major organization can mess something up like this. Like, if you told me this happened in, the ECHL or whatever, whatever's over there across the ocean, or happen in the XFL or something like that, I could see it. But the National Hockey League, that's whoa. I mean, it just makes Vegas look like the dumbest people in sports. Definitely, really bad at a time when your fans are going to see that and go nuts, and you're struggling, and you've fallen out of the playoff spot, and you don't know how you're going to get these guys back on your roster now. I think Stone, they have to clear up $9 million of space, which they do have players that they can move to injured reserve, but still, I mean, you're a major sports team, and you didn't read a contract. Or maybe they just didn't think that they submitted it and thought they were going to get away with it. And I'm sure this will all be ended up sealed and all that. And we'll never hear the exact saying. And I'm sure that to protect the brand, that the NHL won't let Vegas say anything, or Ottawa say anything, or the Ducks say anything. Just like, yeah, we got our guys back. I think the Ducks said we'll welcome John Moore back whenever he gets healthy. Just funny stuff. Just some of the funniest stuff that I've seen in the news today. Funny. Now, another thing that I also seen that's kind of crazy, and I guess we're just going to switch off on MLB and NHL topics today, which I have an NBA one to come next. Don't worry, people. But there was a lawsuit that was brought by players on DraftKings against Boston, New York Yankees, and the Houston Astros, basically suing them for $5 million, saying that they were messing up the game of skill by stealing signs. And I don't know if the Yankees were actually involved in that. Also, I think that was just Boston. But somehow the Yankees got involved to where the judges unsealed paperwork, or as a judge after 2 years ago, that a judge ruled to unseal the paperwork from the case, that they're going to unseal more paperwork for the case about sign stealing. And the Yankees aren't happy about it. And from the way that sounds, that can't be a good thing if you're not happy about it. Because it kind of makes you look guilty already off the bat. And I think it was Boston actually reported the Yankees using iPads or something like that, or a camera in center field. And of course, you know about Houston using their camera in center field and beating on trash cans, which I guess was easy to pick out. It was just a little more obvious than, using iPads on the bench. I mean, there was so much in this case. People watching a feed from downstairs that they're not supposed to be watching in the clubhouse, and relaying signs when they changed and all that. I mean, there's crazy stuff in here that these teams were doing. And now if this stuff comes out, does this kind of make the MLB look bad for what they did to Houston, and only going against Houston when the Yankees already are making themselves look guilty? I mean, you're kind of putting yourself in an NFL jam when you're the MLB here. And the NFL, I mean, the Brian Flores, the John Gruden stuff, I mean, that's kind of all blown over a little bit with the way free agency is going crazy and the trades and all that, the offseason. You're kind of becoming the new scapegoat sport with the way the CBA thing worked out, which, you know, the MLB shouldn't look bad with the way the NBA has been locked out twice in the last 20 years. You had the NHL locked out for a whole year before. I mean, it was almost 30 years ago now that the MLB was on a strike. But the way everything went down with the CBA, and now and then with the Tyler Skaggs thing, with the way the minor league players, you know, that's still brought up the way they're treated in the minor leagues. And now you got the sign stealing thing going on. And now this could kind of blow up, and that you kind of maybe jumped the gun and just went after the Astros because of what people seen when you kind of knew this case was going on. And maybe the Astros thing is so different, maybe because they felt like it was so blatant, and then maybe they felt like that New York and Boston stopped doing their things after this. But I can't picture that you wouldn't investigate all three of them at the same time. If this was all going on and this was happening, why wouldn't all three be investigated and punished equally? Or punished for what would be deemed for the crimes that they committed? I mean, people got fired over this. People that weren't the Astros anymore. I mean, Carlos Beltran was a manager in New York. It's going to be his first season as a manager. And AJ Hinch in Houston now, and now he's stuck in Detroit. Alex Cora for the Red Sox, who ended up getting his job back with the Red Sox. So you got to really feel bad for Carlos Beltran in that whole situation. Which at the time, he's just a 40-year-old guy trying to win a World Series. And he basically got the most punishment out of anybody. Because it's kind of blown over at the players anyway. They still get booed at times. But you don't hear much complaining about, you know, the stats are changing for Alex Bregman or Jose Tabu or anything like that. Altuve. God. With the names. I knew I said it wrong when I came out the first time, and I still repeated it. But Jose Altuve. Alex Bregman. You know, and the old guy got punished out of it. The guy was becoming the first 5 manager too. And now and I'm sure that, you know, with Buck Showalter, he might just be that transition back into Carlos Beltran. You know, you get a couple of good years with Buck Showalter. He's an older guy. Probably, you know, close to retirement than he is to having, you know, a decade-long run. So maybe that's this year transferring back into Carlos Beltran. Maybe he gets a coaching job there soon. It probably is something like that. But none of the people that were Boston at the time got punished. None of the people at the Yankees at the time got punished. And, I mean, could you have some kind of repercussion 5 years down the road after? I mean, I guess the players' union ain't really protecting the coaches. So it might be a little easier to go that way. But I'm sure there's the coaches have, you know, some kind of protection there. So we're like, hey, you know, this is 5 years ago, and this is stuff that, like, there's nothing compared to what, you know, beating on trash cans and all that, or, you know. I mean, I'm sure there's going to be some fights here. And now I see that they were coming out with some new technology where it's kind of like an armband, and then the infielders and the pitcher got something in the head with the catcher just types something in, types the pitch, types the location, and all that, and it moves it sends a a generic voice to the ball player's caps, and they can just move around and know the pitch is coming without having to even worry about that situation at all, which is kind of cool to think about. I mean, get the technology involved as much as you can. Definitely in a game that needs to go quicker in the first place. So if you can call pitchers without having to throw 50 signs, because they're always changing up the signs. When a runner's on second, they're throwing 3, 4, 5 different sets of signs down when a runner's on base to try to get the player to steal the sign anyways. You got players stepping off. You got the pitcher stepping off, catcher coming out to the mound. Sometimes the pitching coach coming out, then fielders coming to the mound. I mean, it's unnecessary delays. And maybe that's what you do at this point, is instead of punishing the Yankees or the Red Sox or anything like that, you just say, hey, now we're going to implement this now because, this stuff had to come out. You shouldn't have blocked it. You should have let everything happen at the time when it was happening, when we had to get rid of the Beltran of the world. We had to get rid of Alex Cora. We had, for the year. We had to get rid of AJ Hinch. So, I don't understand why the Yankees would even put themselves out there and say, let's block it. They've been trying to deal with it for a couple of years. I would just let it flow and be like, we got to take our whooping. So we'll see what happens on that one. Now, it's crazy to think about that one of the hottest coaches in the NBA used to be the head coach of Mizzou basketball. And God, would I not love some Quin Snyder days right now? And from what I've read, it was mostly Ricky Clemens. If you remember that whole story, Ricky Clemens and getting a bunch of free stuff, and Ricky Clemens saying that everybody got free stuff at the time. And Quinn ended up saying, "Yeah, I had some other guys over at my house for meals and stuff like that," which I don't think you can do that anymore. But I'm, boosters giving people money for the jobs that weren't done and stuff like that, which would essentially be an NLI now, I guess, or NIL. But that guy is like one of the hottest coaches in NBA basketball. The reports of him going to the Lakers, reports of him replacing Popovich with the Spurs. Both teams he actually was an assistant coach at. But his first head coaching job was at Mizzou. And if you read his story, it's crazy. It's crazy how that worked out, even after the Ricky Clemens stuff. He had a bad start to the 2000, I think it was 11 season. And the athletic director at the time, Mike Alden, had the commentary guy, Gary Link, who's a great guy. Love him on the radio. Love him as comment. Never met him. Great guy from what I know. Loves Mizzou. True son. All that. Great. But went down and told Quin Snyder that he's going to get fired at the end of the season. You had the commentator do that. You couldn't do that as yourself. So yeah, I probably would have quit in the middle of that season too. But the guy that coaches the Utah Jazz is the hottest coach in the league. And that's just crazy to think about how far he's went from coaching in the G League, assistant coach at Philadelphia, assistant coach in LA, assistant coach in across in Russia. That guy's matured, and go read some of the stories about him. That guy's matured enough to be one of the high commodities in the league. And if the Jazz haven't signed this guy up yet. Now, I read on Wikipedia like the Jazz signed him to long-term contracts, and then you read about 2 years after they signed him to these long-term contracts, he signed another one. And they just got a new GM and Danny Ainge. And some GMs, it's like when they come in, they want to get their own crew going. And Quin said all the right things by saying, this is where I want to be, and I plan on being here for a long time, and I think it's bad to even talk about it or bring it up. It's disrespectful to my players now. It's disrespectful to the organization I coach now and the other organizations. So he said all the right things. And I'm really surprised that he wasn't even mentioned in most of the Duke conversation. But I guess when a guy's got a cozy NBA gig, why would he even think about going and having to recruit and run around and all that? And maybe with the problems he had at Mizzou, maybe he wasn't the guy that people thought could be a good coach. And it's not like he has like some crazy squad up there in Utah. They have a good team. Jordan Clarkson and Mike Connolly, Rudy Gobert, Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gay. I mean, they got a nice little team up there. But I guess when you're in your run good, you take that run. People make you feel superior, I guess. I don't know. It's just crazy to think about that. That could be the guy, and he'd be a younger head coach from some of the coaches in the league. But I mean, with a league that's getting younger, you figure that Danny Ainge might want to go get a younger assistant, maybe a Blanca Hearn. And I'm sure there's some other assistants in the league that I don't know about. And maybe he would want to go at a guy maybe he had in Boston instead of keeping a guy around like a Quin Snyder. But that's just probably how much Quin's evolved. I mean, if you're going to go coach a team like the Lakers with a LeBron on the team or an Anthony Davis, I mean, you're going to have to be a player's coach, and maybe that's what people know him as now. I mean, he used to be a real crazy, fiery guy at Mizzou, and he's still got that passion. But if you see him out there on the court when he's talking to like Don, like his whole time he's on the court in timeouts or anything like that, or a free throw situation, he's just talking to Donovan Mitchell and telling Donovan Mitchell, "Hey, you should have done this," or "Hey, on this next play, let's do this," or "Off this, rebound, blah blah blah." And he's a foreign player, so he has that kind of a player mindset. He wasn't an NBA player, but he played at Duke. He's worked under some great minds. Mike Krzyzewski, obviously. I mean, Mike Brown had some good seasons in Cleveland before he went to LA. Greg Popovich, when he was coaching, he was in the circles with Greg Popovich when he was coaching the G League for the Spurs, the G League team for the Spurs. So he's been groomed under some good coaches. And you could see like a guy, maybe like a guy like LeBron wanting him because he's played for a Coach K on the Olympic squad and maybe feels like that Quin has that kind of same mentality and that's where he learned from. And yeah, this is the kind of guy I want over here. And maybe in the San Antonio situation, you see the players that he can coach up and not, your top, top 5 players, but I would consider Donovan Mitchell probably in the one of the top 10 players of the league. And then he's got one top 10 player, and then he's got a cast around him. I mean, look what he's made that to, and to a team that's catching up to the standings with the Warriors for the 3rd spot in the West. I mean, with the Lakers, the team that they had, I mean, even Portland at the beginning of the season. But then you also have Golden State. You have what they have in Phoenix before Chris Paul got hurt. you wouldn't think that the Jazz would be up there fighting for that third spot in the Western Conference, and maybe you could see how much their team has grown and be like, well, I mean, that's probably a lot of Quin Snyder's fingerprints on it. And in San Antonio's situation, this guy's been here before, and maybe we see something to him that we've seen, and and it's way different now than Poshman's coaching for 95 years. But knows a little bit about the situation and how things work here, and maybe he can produce what he did in Utah. And I was kind of disappointed when Quin left, and we had some good Mike Anderson years, too. And not bad Frank Haith years either, until he screwed us. And then when he screwed us, and then he left for Tulsa after he screwed Mizzou and cost us scholarships and postseason bans and money and all that was posted. Then we hired Kim Anderson. Just don't tell him. And then everybody's going to hate Kim Anderson. And it's crazy to think about. Frank Haith. I mean, you almost want a Frank Haith here now. And maybe Quin Snyder needed the Mizzou thing to be where he is now. And I'm sure he would have got another job somewhere else being a protege of Coach K in the long run. But from time being a Big 12 coach to now coaching a top 4 Western Conference team in the NBA, I mean, that's not bad at all. I mean, I'll take it. He had to go through it though. It's not like he just went from Mizzou to Utah. Mizzou to Utah to being one of the hottest commodities in the NBA. Is this not? I mean, this when's the last time you heard about that? Kind of cool that one of the best players in the league from St. Louis. I mean, the hottest coaches used to coach your college basketball team, and one of the top players, maybe the top player in the league right now, is from St. Louis. I mean, it's nice to nice to see a little Missouri basketball going around the league. I mean, in Bradley Beal still. And there's not much other representation. But, hey, I mean, if we got the best player in the league from our city, repping our city a lot, and get to see Quin Snyder be one of the top coaches, like, I'm not mad at it. And it's kind of funny today. Another story I seen is that the mayor of New York said Thursday he's going to pull the vaccine mandates for all athletes in New York. Of course, when the Yankees and Mets started. I mean, if you think about it, that's essentially 162 games in your home state where you're going to take some of your best players off the field. And people probably aren't going to go to them games, and that's going to generate less revenue. It's at least a little easier to go to them Brooklyn Net games without Kyrie, because you're still going to see Kevin Durant, and at the time you were seeing Durant and Harden. But, you see the playoffs starting to roll up for the NBA and the NHL, which I don't know how many players are unvaccinated in the NHL. But you see about the time the NBA playoffs roll up, which about and New York is usually a big thing. It's going to have to be Brooklyn, but it's a big thing. And then 162 games of baseball. I mean, you kind of have to make a revenue decision at that point. And I understand with, as he said, 8.8 million people and 30 million opinions, why he had the stance that he did. He's just trying to cover his ass if, a bunch of people start dying. And, then every week they're coming out with a new COVID variant and this and that. And, I understand protecting the people. But sometimes you just have to relax. And some people are prone to get sick, and some people are prone to not get sick. Like I said, I'm not feeling. Like I said in the last podcast, I'm not feeling all that great. When I'm like regular sick, when I got a cold or nothing, that's nothing. Blow my nose, do what I gotta do. When I'm like really like sick or like pain sick, which I kind of am right now, like I'm the biggest baby in the world, and I'm probably being over dramatic about it and all that. But I never got COVID. So some people are lucky and some people aren't. But sometimes you have to relax. You have to let people do their jobs. And that's just for athletes. I think sometime soon he's going to do a rollback for the kids and all that, which protecting young kids. I'm a big understandable where he's at with all that. I just don't know how close you get to athletes for that to cause any problem. I guess when they're sitting close on the bench, you can also infect the workers or other NBA players. So I understand it a little bit. And all these towns gotta, feel, I don't want to call it woke, but I guess I'll call it woke. And luckily, we live in a Midwest city, which kind of bodes well for us because our opinion is a little different than where it is, where people gotta be like, oh, it's New York, it's New York. It's not, you don't hear much about St. Louis. And believe me, there's some crazy, crazy people out here about this whole COVID thing. I'm talking about, I was in a place where, you have room to stand around people. Like I was standing in the hallway with multiple other people. So you can be 6 foot apart. And there was multiple benches and all this and places to sit and, all fine and dandy. And the ladies running around with their babies like, I gotta take my baby outside. Because of all these gross people and people who just don't give a F about other people's lives and all that. Like, are you that crazy, lady? Like, at this point, 90% of the people have been vaccinated. And there were people wearing masks in there. But you could put yourself 6 foot apart from somebody else. And supposedly it doesn't spread that. So you could have went anywhere else but you're going to run and scream around here and tell everybody how gross they are and how much they don't care about. How are you going to tell me what I want to do? Or how I feel about it? I feel like I didn't want to be 6 foot next to you in the first place. So you're making it the problem because I'm nowhere near you, and you're and I'm not the person that really cares about. I probably giggled about it, and there was multiple other people in there, and I was surprised, the anti-vaxxers didn't come out and defend themselves or anything like that. They let that just let the crazies be the crazy, let Karen be Karen, which was kind of nice. As I got myself off topic. But what I'm saying is about the whole mask thing. It's just time to let it go. Or the vaccine thing, it's time to let it go. People have already picked their side on it. And I understand after you get the vaccine, you can still get sick. And I thought after the boosters and all that, I don't know. I want to be safe just like everybody else, to be honest with you. So and it's hard to be safe, I guess, if I don't read up on it. I just know I haven't gotten it yet. And I know that when I see you, unless we know each other, good friends, but most of the time, if I see you and I know, yeah, it's going to be a nice little wave and walk right by you. But, if it's my family or, good friends, yeah, handshake, whatever. We've been 6 feet apart recently, 6 feet in front of each other recently. It's not a big deal. But yeah, hey, let's keep each other safe. 6 feet, 6 feet. So I understand you had to set a precedent at some point. But, it's just over the fact. Like, you're not going to force anybody to change their mind after so long. I guess unless they get sick. I mean, people are still dying from COVID. Like, I was reading a story today. Someone, some famous person died from COVID. The creator of the GIF, actually, died from COVID. And I thought this crap was over. And you just see something like that, and you're like, people are still getting COVID. And I guess it's just going to be something just like the flu. You're going to get sick. And I guess since it's out there now, it's out everywhere, and it's not going to stop. But I guess since they got it's like they got the flu shot, and they got all the COVID shots, and they got, the flu, I don't even remember what the shots you take when you're kids for other diseases. I was going to say flu pox, and then, my brain actually said, don't say it like you said. I don't even know what I said earlier. I can't even say it again. Altuve or something, whatever I said. I didn't say Altuve, I can tell you that much. But, I guess it's just a thing that's going to be around. Which you can't dispute. The people that dispute that COVID's even real. Like, it was fun to do it in the beginning. Definitely when you didn't get it, when you didn't get it for a while, it was like 6 months in, you didn't, and like, only the celebrities are getting COVID. I never heard anybody with COVID, and then all of a sudden, people in your family start getting it, and then you're like, oh, kind of slipped up on that one a little bit. Which, I didn't go around them people. Honestly, I would have stayed around the people. If it wasn't around Christmas time, I probably would have stayed around the people, away from the people a lot longer than I did. But I guess with the medicine, and they were actually vaccinated when they got it. So, when someone gets it, when family gets it, you don't kind of screw yourself at that point where you're like, oh man, I gotta go see these people. But it's still a thing. It's still a possibility to get it now. I don't know how many vaccines and boosters and all that you have to not get it. And maybe there's still a chance of you getting it then. People that get the flu shot get the flu. People that take cold medicine still get the cold. So, it's not like something I guess I should have thought that out before I said, I guess it's just around. I guess stuff just doesn't go away. You can fight it. I guess that's like life too. Life doesn't go away, but you can fight it. All right, we're going to take a break. This is the GreaterStl Sports Podcast on the SG4L Media Network. Hello and welcome back to the GreaterStl Sports Podcast and the SG4L Media Network. Robert Bowlesby here with you. You can tweet the podcast at GSTLSP. You can tweet the network at SG4LMN1. You can find us on Instagram at GreaterStlSP. You can find us on iHeart, Apple, Google Podcast, and Spotify, GreaterStl Sports Network. And you can find the videos on Spotify, Facebook, and YouTube at GreaterStl Sports Network. I didn't do weird news last week, mostly because I was pissed off at the Cardinals and the Trevor Story thing. And, you know, Blues Twitter, like, they're going nuts over the Blues. Which you're starting to see that some of them, almost all the teams are going kind of in a little tailspin here towards the thing. But in Florida, of course, and this is on New York, the NewYorkPost.com, which is one of the funnier websites because I feel like a lot of the stuff on here is kind of reminds me of the Huffington Post almost. But they actually have like real writers, like real legitimate writers. I think Joe Sheehan writes for the New York Post, and that's a known baseball writer. Before Florida men were busted for installing devices inside gas pumps to drive prices down to nearly nothing and set prices at per gallon cost plunging just pennies to a gallon and allowing pumpers to fill almost up for free. Now, they allegedly pulled this off at two separate Circle K's in the state of Florida. Now, you want to know how these guys got caught? This one guy got caught stealing gas at one of these Circle K's. And then, for stealing diesel fuel, actually. And another one was cuffed 2 days later at the same gas station inside trying to install a device inside a pump. What's kind of crazy about this is they had remote controls for it and everything. Which is crazy to think about. That you could kind of control that shit. That kind of stuff. And that I guess they were stealing it and reselling it. I guess that's the only thing that becomes logical. And I'm not a guy that complains about gas prices too much. Number one, because I don't drive anywhere. I basically go to work and go home. But you got to pay to play. And with all the stuff that inflation already has gone up on, you're going to pay for gas. You're just going to. It's a responsibility. I mean, I guess in these days, this is the way people are robbing and stuff. Like, you might be able to think that you can just go to a gas station and just, steal some gas. And, I mean, that's part of the thing that hurts inflation is people stealing. Which, I mean, some people that steal it and you have to do what you gotta do. But the people just do it just to do it because they can get away with it. I mean, that's what really kind of hurts prices on everything and stuff like that. Why milk can go from, $2.50 a gallon a few years ago to $4 a gallon. Now, the funny thing is, I keep reading about that these barrels keep going down and they're about the same prices, but they're still scared about the war in Russia. So we got to keep prices the same just in case. Kind of sounds like someone's trying to make some money here to me. And we really can't complain in St. Louis because you see these gas prices everywhere. I mean, the gas prices they show in this Florida picture are almost $7 a gallon. And I seen somewhere in Missouri that was actually like $3.39 a gallon the other day. So, I mean, I'm really not going to sit here and complain about $4 a gallon. But I kind of wish I would have found this hack. The credit card hack, that doesn't sound no fun. I mean, that sounds like, credit card fraud, which sounds like a big thing. And I guess in this situation, this could be some kind of fraud, defrauding the gas station. But I'd like to get some free gas once in a while. You always see the gas stations that give out free gas, and they're never close to where you're at. It's always like in some, Egypt, Missouri, or something like that. And even when it is close, there's people waiting at the gas station, 3 miles down the highway. So I can understand wanting to do it. I just don't understand how people can think of this stuff, and how would that even work? How do you get the device in the gas pump? like, it's got to be different than opening the gas button than just popping that little thing off the credit card machine. That's essentially all it is. The change of paper on the credit card machine, you just pop the thing off, put the paper in there. The old school way, back when I worked at gas stations, which is this point 5, 6, 7 years ago. I didn't get free gas then, matter of fact. Anyways, it's a weird news story for the day. Now they're going nuts over there a little bit in the UFC realm over there. Now this Chael Sonnen thing kind of trips me out. Now Chael Sonnen beat up supposedly like 4, 5, 6 guys and a girl because one of the guys was talking crap to his wife. And they dropped the charges and all that, and the charges are now being re-brought, and a couple of them could be felonies, and he got brought with 11 charges. And, hey, you know, in that situation, not really going to hate on Chael Sonnen for if he felt like at the time he had to defend his wife. But my whole thing about ESPN is you knew this was happening. You probably know more about the case than the average person. I'm sure it's his job, and I'm sure you're getting filled in about it and all that. And you're just going to take him off now. And something's going off, of course. But why if you're ESPN, why do you remove him now? Why don't you let the courts do their thing? And if he's bad then he's bad then. And this one was hauled backwards anyway, because wouldn't you think he'd be taken off the first time by ESPN? And he wasn't. And ESPN's the one that made all the statements, but I mean, I wonder if UFC has something to do with this, where they would say, hey, you guys, if you guys were wanting to do this, you probably should have done this a little bit earlier. Then take off one of our lead guys, one of the guys that, brings eyes to this. And this ain't going to stop Chael Sonnen from doing his YouTube show. So he's still going to have opinions. He's still going to get his word out there, and now you're not getting that. After you waited all this time to deal with it when you knew this was coming. And I just think it's the freaking culture. It's. I mean, the Deshaun Watson thing's a whole different thing, but he's not getting charged with anything. But I think someone said like 20s plus women can't be wrong. And I think that you might be wrong there, that there's a possibility, but it's a thought. And maybe Chael threw the first punch, and the people felt like they had to defend him, and when they said their statements, they're like, well, we felt like we had to defend ourselves because this guy was going nuts. But essentially 5-on-1, 5 dudes with one girl against Chael Sonnen, which tells you how badass Chael Sonnen is. That he's out here beating up 6 people. That there wasn't no, some kind of like, hey, well, Chael had to defend himself because all these guys came after him. No, he's the only one getting charged in this thing. With everything. And he's getting charged with 1 felony for use of strangulation. I haven't seen the video or nothing like that, which I wish I would. My whole disappointment with the ESPN, and this happens everywhere. It used to be innocent until guilty. Now it's, well, you're guilty now until we do our investigation. until we deem that you're not guilty. You don't start off not guilty. We have to deem that you're not guilty for us to feel better about the situation. That's essentially what ESPN is doing here. And I just don't think, as a business owner, and I understand that ESPN is a whole lot different than running, any business that I would ever run. But essentially, I would want to have my, the people that are involved in my business feel the same way about me that I feel about them. So I would want the benefit of the doubt too. And there's just no benefit of the doubt anymore. And it's just the way that the world works now. You can't be on one side of anything. And so you're not getting all this crap on Twitter and this, with the social media monsters and all that. Who wants the backlash? Because when this is all settled, who's going to get the backlash then? Because if this gets settled, it's not like it's a John Jones thing. It's not like it's a Greg Hardy thing. It's not like, hey, that guy's out there beating up his wife. He's defending his wife in this situation. So this is an easier thing to blow over. And I guess, so this is the easier way to go about it. Man, if I'm Chael Sonnen, I would feel disappointed that my employer would be like that towards me. I mean, I've literally, when I was a manager at a restaurant, we would all, you'd see the cameras, and when the GM would be like, this wasn't right today, or this wasn't right today, or this wasn't right today. You'll watch and you actually see people stealing, but it wasn't like it was a fight. Like, ooh, looks like they did something right there. It was like, all right, let's watch it from this angle. Or if you only had one angle on it, it was like, let's watch this. What does that look like? What does that look like to you? What does that look like? There was multiple opinions. And before it was even like, hey, you're fired if we deem that you didn't do this. Then we'll bring you back. That's essentially what happened to Chael Sonnen. That's what happened to the American gangster. That's what happens when you get charged with 11 acts of battery against 6 people. That's some gangster ass stuff right there. Believe me, you won't see that on the news about me anytime soon. You won't see that on the news about me with one person. Like, oh, he got charged with battery for beating up one person. No, too old for that. I think me and Cal might even be older than me. So, and he's still out here doing it. And I'm sure when some guys get out, they're still training and stuff, even though they lose a lot of weight and kind of form back into their normal body. I mean, I'm sure they still have adrenaline pumping where they have to get it out somehow. Cal just took his out when someone talked to his wife funny. So I just wish ESPN would have said, we're going to look into this. We're going to slow Kale's schedule down so he can focus on other things. But hey, we're going to support him, and we're going to put him on TV as much as we're getting. And we're still going to let him, work on his podcast. Because Kale ain't going to stop being Kale. Kale's going to be on YouTube talking about this. So, in a time when, generating revenue is the big thing, he can just move that to YouTube and be like, well, I can go the Pat McAfee route and just do my thing here. And I don't know if it's... And he's also got Eagle FC, and you already know how Khabib is. Khabib don't give up about nothing. Women's fighting, people beating up, he don't care. So the commentator there, he still has a job somewhere. And I don't know where Eagle FC actually shows on TV. I should probably look that up. But I mean, in this time where there's so many other things, I mean, just YouTube itself. But you could throw it on Facebook, Twitter. I don't know how Twitter works with the videos. I've had trouble putting clips of videos from this podcast on Twitter, so I gotta figure that out. But monetization is on all these websites now. I mean, it's been on YouTube a while, but you can do it with Facebook videos now, and the Instagram and the Reels. And he's a big enough name in MMA where he doesn't need ESPN eyes. And a lot of people have proved that lately. Dan Le Batard, from the radio side. I'm not the biggest fan, but Jameel Hill, Kerry Champion. They prove that you don't need ESPN. Because there's eyes everywhere. So I think ESPN put themselves in a bad spot by guilty before innocent. To where they could take some eyes off their TV because, people are going to watch Kale for his analyst. I mean, people are going to find a way to watch Kale. And you might just ruin, what you already have is crappy UFC coverage on your network. You might take the best thing of your UFC coverage off that network. And reading May stories now are crazy. It's not like the Jorge and Colby thing. Go Jorge. Go George Masvidal. Whether he sucker punched you or not, hey man, you brought up his kids, you brought up his wife. He knew where you were at. He found you. Boom. And at first it was all trying to play up if you read the police report, it says plaintiff A and victim B and victim A and plaintiff or whatever. Aggressor A and victim A. It's easy to know who it is. And hey, go George Masvidal on that one. Defend your family, bro. I'm not even mad at you for that. I sucker punch, call him a bitch, whatever you want to call George Masvidal for doing that. You know that Colby's not that kind of guy, but he wants to talk like he's that kind of guy. Well, show him that he ain't that kind of guy. Prove to him who he is. Which in that situation is a punk. Yeah, I don't care if you beat me in a case. You've talked about my family and stuff. Anytime I catch you, it's time to see you. So, every time I see you, I'm coming to get all that smoke. Look at me using the kids' terms. But yeah, I'm coming for you wherever I see you. Any chance I get to see you. You post on Instagram that you're in my hood, that you're close to me, that you're near where I'm at. I'm coming for you. That's your fault for doing it. Don't take my heart lightly. Just because you got all this cocky stuff, you think you can go play around with my ex-wife and post all these videos and say that she said this and say that she said that? All right. We're going to see. We're going to find out. George wasn't the smartest guy getting on, whatever he got on Instagram or whatever, and bragging about it. At the time while he's trying to get his fighting, the Game Bred Fighting Championship, a promoter's license in Vegas, and then he goes and does something like this in Miami. Which, hey, you didn't do it in Vegas, I guess. But yeah, that's, not the biggest fan of Covington. Bigger fan of George. George kind of falling off his game a little bit. When you're getting older, that's what's going to happen. But if you're Covington, you go out there and back it up. You go out there and back it up. But when you say something about someone's family, you got to back that shit up all the time. If someone says something about my family like that, you're going to have to back that up. And I'm talking about people I'm not even a fan of in my family. But I'm letting you know that you're going to have to back it up. And I'm letting you know that every time I see you. No matter where we are. I don't care if I'm standing next to the President of the United States, getting the Presidential Medal of Freedom or whatever the medals they just randomly hang out to people. If you're there getting one too, it's on. White House lawn and all. And smart for he beat me in it. He beat me in his element, which is winning fights in the octagon lately. I took him out of his element and put him in how I started as a street fighter. Hey, sometimes you got to make people uncomfortable. It's not always easy to win. And I'm sure after he gets charged and everything, that this probably stops, or someone stops, Dana, like, hey man, you're hurting my money here. Which Dana's smarter than that. He'll promote it somehow. He knows how to promote some stuff. I mean, that's the only reason the UFC is big, is because Dana Knight knows how to promote it. The same reason why wrestling's big, because Vince McMahon knows how to promote it. And I mean the whole state of wrestling. I don't mean the WWE. I mean everything in wrestling is because Vince McMahon promoted it. Bellator and the PFL and whatever league you're around is around because of the UFC and Dana White. So I'm sure that Dana's going to say something, and in about a few months from now, it's going to be a promotional thing. And I'm sure that the videos will be put in a promo package and all that, and you'll have your last, whatever they want to call this fight, Miami fight, who's the winner in the Miami fight, or they want. I think Usman says he has the BMF title. However that works, whatever they want to call it. The Thrilla in Las Vegas, for all I care. This probably isn't going to affect any of their careers. I mean, I think it makes Colby look whole bad in this situation. I don't know if he called the cops, or the cops were just around, or someone else called the cops, or anything like that. But sometimes you got to stop snitching. Like, sometimes you just got to say, I don't know what happened. Because if you're about it, hey, you wanted to do all that stuff with his wife and stuff, you'll catch him somewhere. If you're down there playing in Miami, you know where I'm sure you got somebody that knows Jorge, or where he hangs out. I mean, get your revenge. Do it the right way. Because they all got money and they got UFC lawyers, so I'm sure this all works out easily for Masvidal. And I talk all this, about being about my family and stuff. I'm sure if I got, hit with some charges that first time, I've probably done that second time. And maybe that's not true. People speed after getting speeding tickets. So some people aren't like that. I really don't like getting tickets, though. I try to stay away from those. But I have to say I haven't gotten multiple tickets for stupid things. No insurance, plate light out. It's something not very bright. One time I got a speeding ticket and couldn't find my ID, lost it somewhere, left it at work, something like that. Something stupid. Left it at home. Got pulled over about an hour later, and I had to use the ticket as my ID. Hey, how good of a feeling is that? Like, hey, can you give me and the lady didn't give me a break. She wouldn't. she's like, maybe you should let your passenger drive. Who I got a speeding, who almost got us pulled over earlier today for flying in front of a cop. But, he actually seen the cop. So it was a whole different story. I didn't see the cops that came after me. But yeah, I mean, you could say, George Masvidal is a punk for sucker punching him. But, Colby's a punk for talking to the police. So if you want to go 50-50 with that, that's there. But I'm against Colby though. I'm against Colby the whole way anyways. I keep wanting to say Colby because I keep wanting to say Kofi. Because I keep wanting to say Covington. But I'm against him in the first place because I don't like him. And I'm more against him because he's out there telling Masvidal's name to everybody. So, I mean, maybe, maybe this leads to a fight, and maybe, hey, sooner or later, cool heads will prevail. Sooner or later, one of these guys will be like, hey, it's all good between us. People do what they do. Or this keeps going on, and Dana gets promoted as long as he wants to make money off it. And we're not done with UFC. Conor McGregor was arrested and his car was seized for dangerous driving. His car was given back to him, and after he bonded out for $15,000. What is dangerous driving? Is what I want to know. So over here, careless and improving driving, which essentially you're just weaving out of traffic or you're flying off exit ramps and just cutting the people off and stuff like that. I'm gonna guess it's about the same thing, or doing donuts. It could be anything. This dude is wild, man. He's got to be one of the most. And I'm gonna guess success gets to your head every now and then. But the dude is absolutely wild, absolutely nuts. Sooner or later, you just gotta be I'm gonna mellow out. I want to come back. I want to get this big fight. Or maybe he's just at a point in his life where he's like, I gotta hype up everything. If I do this, they lied on me. I can't. That was a horrible, horrible, horrible Conor McGregor impression. We will never, ever, 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 ever do that again on this show. But anyways, maybe you just keep yourself relevant by just doing stupid stuff because how you were relevant before you can't do right now because you broke your leg. And every time he talks, he doesn't talk about fighting Porter again. I'm coming back for the championship. I'm coming back from the championship. I'm coming back from the championship. Which I think Conor almost, and I know Dana loves him and he's the draw and everything, but he can draw. He's going to draw no matter what. I mean, I think you got to make sure he fights for the championship. And not fight he gets us his first fight. He earns his spot to that championship. But money's money. And when he comes back, it's going to be one of your biggest draws out there. Because the UFC is kind of in a transitional period with their stars now. I know it's been going on for a while from the Matt Hughes to the GSPs into the Diaz's and the McGregor era, but I mean, both Diaz's are about done. Connor's doesn't have much longer to go. You lost Cormier recently. Bisping was one of your louder guys out there. And they do have some smaller talent. Paddy Pumlet, Sean O'Malley. They do have Israel Adesanya. So you still have some little bit of talent here and there, but they're also in a transitional period where, some of these divisions are kind of falling off. Your biggest draw in the heavyweight division can't seem to win your championship. And your actual champion now is, kind of fighting you on his contract and kind of wants to, go do some other things that I don't think Daddy Dana's going to want him to do. But I guess there was this so packed a few years ago with Cormier, McGregor, Mazadov, both the Diaz brothers, Khabib, Stipe, John Jones. I mean, you had a stacked lineup there for a while. And it's kind of just dwindling down. And, in the UFC at some point, it's going to have to, look at what all these other leagues are doing and be like, man, somewhere in there, you're going to have to start upping up fighter pay to make people stars. Because your big stars ain't fighting. Your big attractions now aren't fighting the top guys because of what they get paid. And like I said, money's money. But, you can go read into all the stuff that Jake Paul brings up. And Dana's just not smart with telling everybody the numbers. Dana should just be like, find them on your own. Like, oh no, fighter pay has gone up 200% since, 2010 or whatever he said. And then they go, well, revenues went up 6,000%, or, and like, Dana, just be like, fighters pay's gone up. They know they negotiate their own contracts. But he's just a loudmouth. And hey, I mean, that's how he's been doing it. That's how he's been successful. All for Dana White doing whatever he wants. That's why he's Dana White. Because he can do whatever he wants. And of course he's going to defend himself. He's just one of them guys that I feel like is always trying to defend himself. Like, dude, you're almost a billionaire. Like, and, I don't know how close he is, but you got a lot of money. Like, bro, you don't have to defend yourself anymore. You bought a dying sport and revived it and made it into one of the biggest things around the world, to where everybody's trying to get the UFC rub. WWE. And now, AEW with Paige Van Zandt. TNA's done it before. Impact Wrestling. I'm talking wrestling promotions nobody knows. But, I mean, he's created something different. I mean, how big the thing he promoted with McGregor and Mayweather was. I mean, you've done your thing, bro. You and I know you're just probably tired of the stupid questions at this point. So now you're just like, F it, I'm just going to go out here and I'm going to, light these people up. But man, it's okay to just like mellow out once in a while. Coming from me, I'm going to get on here every time I do a podcast and just complain about the Cardinals. Which it won't be like that. No, there won't be. I just wanted to complain twice in a row about Corey Dickerson and the almighty King Harrison Bader, but got myself on track again. But Dana don't have to defend himself. These people sign their own contracts too. I mean, they know what they're getting paid. Now with the Ngannou situation, because he's a champ, and I guess in his contract it says if you're the champ, you got to defend the championship. He's like, well, I'm not defending the championship until I get a raise. I mean, you're kind of at a point there if you're kind of where you have to pay him. Because it's not like with Vince, it's funny to keep comparing this to wrestling. But Vince had to do the Bret Hart situation, the Montreal screw job. For you guys don't look it up. Bret Hart getting screwed out of the title because he was leaving for WCW, but didn't want to lose the title in Canada. And then again with Jeff Jarrett leaving for WCW and having an Intercontinental title, but not, working without a contract and be like, well, if you want me to defend this title, I need this money in hand. And I need this much more money to do it because you let me go without a contract. And not that the guy is not without a contract because but like, hey, I'm your champ. I'll just hold on this belt. You can have interim fights and all that, but I'll still run around with it. People are still going to say I'm the interim champ. Or not the interim champ, but I'm the UFC champ. Nobody's defeated me. Like, if Khabib comes back, you can't see him coming back and not being in his first fight, not being for a championship fight, because he's the champion. And whoever holds the title now. So, I mean, I think you kind of back yourself in that situation with Francis, but, hey, the rest of these guys, they sign the contracts. They know what they're getting paid. And, from some of the prices I see, I'm like, that's a little weak. But I don't know how they know how they're going to make, hey, we pay you this and this for the fight, but we pay you this and this for wearing, these clothing or promoting here, promoting there. I just know how much they get to show up and how much they get to win. And I guess if you want more money, hey, get a performance bonus. And that's the only situation that's going to hurt Dana is a Ngannou situation. Because you've seen, the guys that draw, and you've heard about what Conor McGregor says he gets paid. If you're Ngannou, I've been in kind of a draw like that. I've beat my body up for this company, so I think, maybe I should, get some things up there. And I'm sure they get pay-per-view revenue and all that. And I guess, I'd rather have guaranteed money than know what can and might not sell. But I'd probably accept it because I've been poor my whole life. All right, that's going to do it. For my Grandma Hicks, love you, Grandma. For Lori, Paul, and Grandma Bowlesby, R.I.P., love you guys. For Maddie, Jake, Zach, Rhiannon, and Joe, I'm Robert Bowlesby, and this has been the GreaterStl Sports Podcast on the all-new SG4L Media Network.